deriving the O'Sullivan 20%, 45% tax limits. How have I derived a 45% tax limit for one generation, temporarily maintainable within one generation, and how have I derived a 20% constitutional, ongoing, sustainable, generation on generation on generation tax limit for any government at any time in any place, under any political or economic system you like. These are the only sustainable tax levels, meaning that about approximately half those levels would be counted as what is often referred to as tax, income tax. So that with a 20% Phillip O'Sullivan tax limit, you basically have a zone around 10% for your income tax. Now, first off, I would like to say that we have various datum to deal with. There's the historical data. In America, around the time of the Civil War, Americans paid no income tax whatsoever. It was mostly customs duty and so on and so forth. At the time of Abraham Lincoln, and look at how people loved Abraham Lincoln and the monument they erected in his memory. He set a temporary 3% tax rate, income tax, to pay for the Civil War. When that was paid for, the tax came off. Imagine running the Iraqi war or the Afghanistani war on that basis. That would kind of hold back the warmongers quite a bit, would it not? Since they still have to run other things. But again, my point elsewhere in other videos is that who runs the country? Now, my contention is we do, but we've got into the habit of thinking the government runs the country. We run the country and the government governs that running of the country. They set the rules and do the policing for what people basically do themselves, and they organise it themselves, eyeball to eyeball, whereas government is anonymous, and that's where the inefficiency, the plunder and the unaccountability takes place. So my contention is that government beyond 10% is criminal and will be found so by future people's tribunals or international courts of taxation justice or government justice or civil crimes against civil administration. Corruption, in other words. And most of our governments are in fact, by that measure, rogue governments. It's not just Libya and Tunisia and Greece and all kinds of wonderful configurations. It's not just Russia. The oligarchic powers, the big players behind the scenes, the powerful men will corrupt any democratically elected government, and it being organised into parties just makes it very efficient as to the personnel whom they would target their corruptions upon. And they play both sides, or three sides, or four sides. It doesn't matter to them. As long as it's their boy in office, whether it's Obama or Clinton or Bush, they don't care. They really do not care. The guy will behave as they say, as we've seen with Mr. Obama Now, how do I derive the 20%? Phillip O'Sullivan, tax limit that must be built into any constitution to have any credibility anywhere in the world from this day forth. And it's this. Well, first of all, we look at the one generation situation, and it just so happens that New Zealand is at a pass in its history, an impasse. We are in the crisis of this credit crunch, the worldwide recession, except it isn't worldwide, is it? It's mostly westwide, and the third world's affected by that, but there's a second world rising up, a developing world, India, China and so on, Southeast Asia, Indonesia, that is probably going to be largely untouched by this process. Brazil and other countries. NAFTA might just manage. Mexico, it's all beneficial for Mexico, but probably not for America itself. And we see, partly from my own personal situation, that the poor, those under a certain kind of income level, and the middle classes, those in a zone of a certain kind of income level, and the upper classes, are probably paying, whichever one you are, poor, middle or rich, you're probably paying, well above 35%, and more likely 45, even 50% of taxes, of real taxes. What we're talking about here is real taxes, where all surcharges, fees, penalties, fines, etc., are all accounted for. Every single possible cut of the economy and your income is cut up and sliced off into local government or federal government or national government or regional governments of some kind or another. And these are people you basically don't eyeball. The camera eyeballs them, but you do not. And so they're essentially anonymous. They're figures, they're tokens, they're icons. And, they're very professional and skilled. So what we've happened historically, another note is when you have 10% taxes, basically you have 10% of the people coming in under that, either as a permanent standing army or government officials or pensioners, or something like that. With 20% total tax take, you have 20% of people, 30%, 30%, 40%, 40%, 50%. Well, we've reached 50%, 50%. So you've got tax productive people supporting, the same number of tax unproductive people. Tax takers and tax makers. That's the break point. And we've reached that in New Zealand. This is a historical period. And there are components of the tax take that have stretched over into the tax make, because public service managers, some years back now, were beginning to be paid more than private sector managers. And we could see that the unproductive ones were being paid more than the productive. And we see that with benefits, where an unemployed man is paid, say, somewhat under $200 a week, but a drunkard as a medical beneficiary is paid well over $200 a week, almost $300 a week to drink. This is madness. This is madness. It's crazy. It must stop. We're supporting a murder in prison at $50,000 a year while the victim gets nothing. No compensation for the loss of income, lifetime earnings of $2, $3, $4 million, or cut off in the midst of life, half of that. Where's that money going to that household, that family? But no, the murderer, all the money goes to the murderer in prison and so on. Hey, just get rid of the guy, and then we can afford perhaps to to properly compensate the victims. Again, madness, insanity. How can anybody fight, die, or defend, promote, or ideologue such a crazy, mad, insane, obscene situation? It is just nuts. I cannot support it, do not support it. I see that it's irrational, it's illogical, it's illegal, it's illegitimate, it's false, it's fake, it's false consciousness, it's wrong, it's bad, it's evil, it cannot work, it does not work, and so on. It's a total delusion. And as I've said in the other two videos here, the underlying theory is crackpot of infinite companies, infinite and perfect, that's another godlike quality, perfect competition, idiotic, mad. The world we're dealing with is real and it's finite. It has limits to it, and there has to be limits to tax. There is only 100%. When you try to make 500%, with banking, the miracle of banking, so-called miracle, or the magic, or the cheat of banking, 10 to 1 money, 500 to 1 money with derivatives, topless money with printing of money. That's crazy. We're into Weimar Republic, the seedbed of fascism. We will see it coming if we do not watch out. We must collapse back and manage back and cut and crunch back this kind of insanity before it's too late. Now, we're in this 50% zone, and obviously, that cannot continue. You must leave at least a little 5% zone for profit, even within the one generation. So the tax limit really is 45%. They must work as hard as they're currently working at 45%, but having 50% of the people under it, if that's what it is. And the 50% must make a monetary profit of 55%. Otherwise, why would they do it? Why would anybody want to do it? And, when you break their hearts, they go out of business, they go overseas, they leave the country, whether it's a person who's trained to be employed, has professional skills, or whether it's a business, a company, and so on and so forth. And, when the reality faces them, that people who are not worthy of it, or who have not earned the right to have this money, have the money, and they do not, when they're doing the work for it. Come on, people are not stupid. It's a no-brainer. They will leave. And this is the major problem of this country, New Zealand. We have one of the highest levels of people living overseas of any nation, born in the country, of any nation upon this earth. We're not yet trading infinitely with other planets. Come on, just keep it real. There are limits. We are limited. And there is only 100%. There's not 110 or 120. And if you try and do that, you are printing money. That is insane. You're just diluting the money. It's a delusion. Cannot last. So we, in actual fact, here in New Zealand, have conducted this experiment, which is patently failing. It's failing us. We're going backwards. I do not believe the productivity figures at all, and haven't done now for quite some time. They're created by the public service managerial class, university professors and so on. They are public servants, and the same with judges and other people who sit on taxation boards and so on. They're wanting to hear their own words out of their own mouth. This is crazy. Why don't they just cup their hands and go insane like a schizophrenic and talk to themselves? That's basically what they're doing. It's crazy. It is totally nuts. Now, in one generation, with the 50-50, so you get the 50-50. This is the O'Sullivan limit for one generation. But this is not sustainable. It's too near the margin. The 5% is tiny. Wow. You want boom. You want big pool of investment money, which comes with another good whack of 10-20% of the entire economy fed back into investment. You need that to really move strongly ahead. You don't want piddling little 0.2% growth and 4% growth. You want Chinese growth. You want 8%, 10, and 9, and 20% growth. That's what you want to see. That's life. That's vigour and energy. Anything less, it's pathetic. We're paying drunks more than people who are temporarily unproductive. Who are not drinking, not gambling, not smoking. We're paying people who smoke and drink and are going to be sick and chronically cost the state a lot of money. We're paying them more money in order to get them in that state. Hey, we've got to stop that. We've got to stop it. This is just mad. Now, so the growth money, so the taxes must, I'd say, half that. So to have a sustainable, strongly growing, and of course some things that you launch to grow don't work. So you've got to have, we've obviously got to have rainy day money for earthquakes and wars and famines and seasonal setbacks and trade losses. If not wars in our own country, overseas wars that affect our business and trading. So we may have to reconfigure our entire economy and structure. So we need money, seed money here. We need infrastructure built up and all that kind of thing. We need a huge, great whack put into that. Any company that doesn't is going to die. And the same with a country. A country is a gigantic company of stakeholders and shareholders and investors. We're all investors in our own country, our own welfare, our own productivity and industry. And we can't put all this money into sickness and preparing for life. We've got to put this money into something that goes forward in life. This is life. We've got an economy that's now designed for death. It's designed to collapse. It's designed to die. This is crazy. We've got to have something that's designed to live. And so we've got to put, 10, 20%, 15%, some whacking big amount of our money into research, development and investment for growth within the country.